The morning after our wedding, sunlight barely crept through the curtains when she slid a piece of paper across the breakfast table. "Read this," she said, sipping her coffee like a CEO signing off on a merger. The paper was titled Rules, neat bullet points typed like a contract. No female friends, all finances shared. Major decisions require my approval. Family visits will be supervised, no arguments in front of my parents. I remember the way she looked at me then, smug, expectant, as if waiting for applause. I didn't say a word. I folded the list once, twice, tucked it into my wallet. She smiled, thinking silence meant surrender. But it wasn't surrender. It was reconnaissance. Because by the time her father stormed into our house 3 days later, red-faced, trembling, voice cracking, I'd already moved the first piece on the board. He shouted that I realized what I had just cost this family. She froze. Her coffee cup slipped from her hand, shattered on the tile. I didn't move. I just looked at him, calm as ever, and said, "Yes, I do." I met her in a place that makes everyone pretend they're better than they are, a charity gala. She was magnetic, confident, beautiful in that way power always is. Her father owned a real estate empire. She was his heir apparent. I wasn't poor, just middle class, with ambition sharp enough to cut through marble. I ran my own design firm. We met over a proposal. Her family wanted to modernize one of their properties. She liked that I spoke to her like an equal. I liked that she seemed to believe in me. For a while, she did. She called me steady, loyal, the only man who doesn't need my money. But people like her mistake stability for weakness. By the time we got engaged, her father's tone had shifted from polite to proprietary. "You'll be joining our family," he said, like it was a promotion. And I, the fool, thought marriage was about partnership. Turns out, it was about assimilation. It started small. The first week after the wedding, she forgot to transfer half the payment for our joint property. Then she accidentally replaced my firm's name on a client contract with her family company's name. When I confronted her, she smiled and told me to relax. "It's all the same. We're married now." That was the moment I knew I wasn't her husband. I was her acquisition. Later that night, I found the original version of her rules document in our printer's memory. The file was titled Prenup Addendum V3. Addendum, not list. Addendum. Her father's initials were in the metadata. The rules weren't hers. They were his. A leash disguised as marital compromise. I didn't confront her. I watched every call she took in the study, every bank transfer disguised as home expenses, every dinner where her father suggested I work under him. By the second week, I had enough evidence to map the full design. They wanted control of my company, a merger masked as marriage. So I smiled more, agreed to everything, and started building my counteroffer. Rule number 1 in war: never fight on your enemy's terrain. So I changed the field quietly. Move 1. I created a new holding company, Graylight Design Holdings LLC, registered under my cousin's name, but with me as silent partner. Move 2. I transferred all my firm's intellectual property, blueprints, client lists, trademarks, to Graylight. On paper, my original company looked empty. Move 3. I agreed to a joint financial account as she requested. Then I linked it to a monitoring system that logged every transaction. Ever since she moved into her father's accounts, I tracked, documented, timestamped. Move 4. I hired a forensic accountant, quietly through a lawyer who owed me a favor. Within days, he discovered her father's shell companies, 5 of them, funneling money through offshore accounts. In Move 5, I reached out to his largest investor, a rival developer who'd once lost a project because of her father's underhanded tactics. I made him an offer, confidential documents, proof of misappropriation, and the opportunity to reclaim every stolen project. All I asked in return was patience. The trap was set. The week before her father's meltdown, she threw a dinner party, our first as newlyweds. I played the doting husband. Toasts, laughter, even kissed her cheek when she boasted about taking charge of the household finances. She didn't notice the courier slip under the door that evening, the one addressed to me. She didn't see the sealed envelope inside labeled Notice of Investigation. I did. The following morning, while she was at brunch with her mother, I met with her father's rival, Mr. Keller. He was older, quieter now, with the look of a man who'd been waiting years for an opening. When I handed him the files, he just said, "This is going to burn him." By the time I got home, her father's empire was already cracking. A quiet inquiry had begun. Regulators digging into offshore transfers, asset laundering, shell properties. I waited. 3 days later, it happened. The same man who'd once toasted at our engagement party, declaring, "Welcome to the family, son," now stood in our living room, pale, shaking, sweating through his suit. He slammed the papers on the counter, demanding if I realized what I just cost this family. She blinked, confused, asking what was going on. He turned to her, voice cracking. "Our accounts are frozen. Keller's people leaked everything, the emails, the transfers, everything." Her eyes darted to me, asking if I knew about this. I leaned back, calm, almost bored. I did. Silence. Her father's face contorted. Disbelief, rage, fear. "You think this won't come back to you?" he spat. I smiled. "It can't. I divested months ago. Everything tied to your name stayed with you. Your rules made sure of that." She whispered, asking what I meant. I turned to her, my voice low but precise. "When you made me sign that list, when you forced me into a joint account, shared everything, you gave me separation, not control. Everything that was mine, I took out of reach. Everything tied to you," I glanced at her father's trembling hands, "is now under investigation." He looked like he'd been struck. "You set us up," he said, almost in awe. I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because at that very moment his phone buzzed. Another notification, another account frozen. The empire was collapsing in real time. Notice of divorce intent arrived. No surprise there. She tried to claim emotional manipulation. Her lawyers demanded compensation. Mine sent back a single-page response. All assets transferred voluntarily under mutual consent. Supporting evidence enclosed. She withdrew the case before the first hearing. Her father's empire fractured. Half his assets seized. The rest liquidated to pay settlements. Keller acquired most of it. Poetic, really. As for me, I rebuilt quietly. Graylight grew threefold in a year. Clients who once belonged to her father now called me directly. I didn't gloat, didn't tell anyone what I'd done, because revenge, when it's real, doesn't need an audience. Sometimes I take out that folded list from my wallet, the one she gave me after our wedding. The paper is yellowed now, creased at the edges. I read the first line again. "No arguments in front of my parents." I smile every time, because the last time her father and I were in a room together, there was nothing left to argue about. She gave me rules. I gave her consequences. Listeners, if you enjoyed this calculated tale of corporate revenge, please subscribe to the Echo Tales YouTube channel.
Leave a comment below about the best move I made, and remember to like this video.